Welcome students. Welcome to the compressible flow lecture series. Course code is U18PCAS502 for BTech Aerospace Engineering students. Myself, I am Ramakrishna Madina, working as assistant professor in the Department of Aeronautical Engineering by here. And today we are going to see the topic fundamental aspects of compressible flows. This is an introduction topic for this course. And the prerequisite for this subject is the fluid mechanics and aerodynamics 1. So if you are good in fluid mechanics and aerodynamics 1, this subject becomes quite easy to understand. Okay, we will go into the topic. So compressible flows, as the name itself indicates, compressible flows. So compressible means which compresses on flowing. So here flows that involve significant changes in density are called compressible flows. So what is the indication? Whenever a flow is flowing, so you say that flow is compressible. So what is the parameter to monitor compressible? So the parameter to monitor compressibility is the main density. Okay, if density is considered to be changing significantly, then you can call that flow as a compressible flow. For any fluid flow to occur, there should be a pressure variation. So that means if you take fluids are two types, liquids and gases. Liquids can travel under the influence of body forces also. For example, if you take gravitational force, that means if you take water, water can travel from higher elevation to a lower elevation, but gas cannot. Gases are least influenced by the body forces. So mostly gases flows happen only from higher pressure area to lower pressure area. So gases are highly influenced by the pressure. Whenever a gas flow is happening through any energy variation, the energy variation may happen in the way of temperature difference or in the way of viscosity difference or any energy difference. If a gaseous flow is taking place, definitely there should be a pressure variation. So, and it also, the flow will happen from higher pressure area to a lower pressure area. So now this pressure variation in turn causes the other property density to vary across the flow. So every gaseous flow, in order to flow, there should be a variation in pressure, there should be a variation in density. So in each and every flow, the density varies. But mathematically speaking, when you are talking about the results, okay, so when you are talking about the results, whatever you want to get for the flow, if you consider density variation or if you don't consider the density variation, if the results are not much varied, for example, due to the density variation, if I consider density variation, I got a velocity of 25.53 meter per second. Okay, and if I neglect the density variation, I got a velocity of 25.52 meter per second. So what is the need to solve density equation for this a small variation, which is 0.01 meter per second? So my result will not be influenced. So for that purpose, mathematically, in which the density variations are not affecting the results much, so such flows are considered to be incompressible flows. Then what is the line? What is the margin here? So here the margin is if the density variation is less than 5%, then you can simply consider that flow as an incompressible flow. That means by considering the density or by neglecting the density, your result is not going to vary much. So you can consider that flow as an incompressible flow and you can simply neglect the density variation. And for the flows where the density variations are greater than 5%, del rho by rho into 100 greater than 5, then those flows are called as variable density flow or compressible flow. Okay, so now we are always using the word compressible. So what is compressibility? Now compressibility is defined as, the compressibility, generally we use tau as the symbol. The compressibility is defined as the rate of decrement in volume per unit change in pressure minus dV by V to dP. So here, why you are using minus symbol? Minus dV by V, rate of decrement of volume per decrement in pressure. So why we are using? So whenever a fluid molecule is acted upon by a pressure, so whenever you are a fluid molecule in surround, it is acted upon by pressure, automatically its volume reduces. Okay, so change in volume is here negative. Change in volume by original volume is negative. So minus dV by V divided by dP, change in pressure. Okay, so it is change in volume to the change in pressure. Since change in volume is negative, always we use the negative symbol. So tau is defined as minus dV by V divided by dP. So simply we can write it as minus V into dV by dP. So here the compressibility is the word used for exactly speaking the compressible flows. Use it. This the tau has units inverse of pressure. Inverse of pressure. So 1 by Pascal you can consider Pascal inverse. Okay. So now density variations are considered. Now what kind of flows? We are talking about gaseous flows. So for example, if you consider the atmospheric flow, when to consider the airflow as a compressible flow or incompressible flow? So now I told the 5% variation we have to consider. For airflows, generally if you take under STP conditions, up to Mach number 0.3, the density variations are very, very small. So it corresponds to around 100 meters per second. So now if you consider a gaseous flow less than 100 meters per second velocity, you can consider simply it as an incompressible flow. You need not to consider the word density. You can neglect in calculations about the change in density. Okay. And suppose if you encounter a flow which is having a velocity greater than 100 meters per second, then you have to consider it as a compressible flow. So the Mach number comes around 0.3. So the compressibility effects are directly indicated by Mach number. Mach number is a direct representation of compressibility effect. So if Mach number is 0.3 and greater for airflows, you have to consider it as a compressible flow. And here the effects become especially large when the Mach number approaches and exceeds unity. So if you are going to sonic range, Mach number 1, the effects become predominant, compressible effects become predominant. And for supersonic flows, the compressibility is a considerable factor. It is influenced highly by variation in density. And here if you talk about gas has large compressibility. But when its velocity is low compared with sonic velocity, the density is small, change in density is small, and it is then treated as incompressible flow. So velocity or Mach number, based on these two, we can tell whether the flow is compressible or incompressible. Okay, this is about gaseous. Then what about liquids? So what about liquids? The liquids here are medium, slight to medium range compressible, but not as good as gases. You cannot compress liquids in a manner that you compress the gases, but you can compress them, but with very high pressure requirements. Simply you can compress a gas with 2:1 range of pressure, but in order to compress water, you need 1000 atmosphere, 1000 times the atmospheric pressure. Okay, so in those conditions only you can call the liquids as compressible flows. So such flows are difficult to obtain in liquids since high pressure of order of 1000 atmospheres are needed to generate sonic velocities. Okay, so that's why liquids are considered to be slightly compressible compared to gases. Gases are highly compressible. And the study of this kind of compressible gases is known as gas dynamics. Okay, this subject, especially if you are talking about airflows under compression, this is called as gas dynamics. So now the subject we are dealing with the gas dynamics. Now here we have to consider thermodynamics. Why we need to consider thermodynamics? I will give you an example. Take a cycle pump. You start pumping air into the tire. After considerable amount of time, let us say after 2 minutes, you just touch the air pump, which is a piston based pump. You just touch it, you can feel the hotness. Here what you have done, just you have started pumping the air into the cycle tire by mechanical action. Here we didn't do any action by inducing heat energy to the gas. We didn't do any physical action, we didn't heat the flow. But what happened actually? In the process of compression, the heat energy is liberated. That's why the air pump has become hot. Okay. So now this liberated heat will not keep quiet. Automatically what happens? It will change the gas properties. So if you purely consider density variation only on the pressure and density terms, then we may lead into mistake. So in order to estimate how the properties are varying at very high compression ratios, definitely we need to consider the liberation of heat energy and how it is going to change the remaining properties of the air. So that's why thermodynamic relations are very important during compression ratios of order of greater than 10. So of order of greater than 10, lot of heat energy is going to liberate, and this heat energy in turn will change the properties of gases. Okay. And even at 3:1 atmospheric pressures also, we are going to get a slight variation in properties of air due to the heat liberation. Not only 10:1, even at 3:1 also, we will get variation in properties of air. That's why thermodynamics is very important when we are talking about the compressibility of air. So aerodynamics one, if you take, it's strictly dependent upon pressure, the variation in velocity, the variation in viscosity. Okay, so we are not talking anything related to energy change. Here heat energy is also one of the form of energy. So we are not talking about any energy changes there. Okay, we are strictly talking in the sense of pure flow. Here, along with the aerodynamic property, aerodynamic behavior, thermodynamic behavior is also very important, because the compressibility, whenever you compress any fluid molecule, the compression, the internal energy present in the fluid molecule will liberate as heat energy. Okay, so if you consider the specific heats, let us say small e, which is the specific heat per unit mass, and H, enthalpy per unit mass. Here if you consider specific heat at constant volume, Cv is given by dou E by dou T at constant volume V, so which is dE equals to Cv dt. And specific heat at constant pressure, Cp equals to dou H by dou T at constant pressure, and it is given by dH equals to Cp dt. So where dt is change in temperature, dH is change in enthalpy, dE is change in internal energy. So the specific enthalpy, which is enthalpy per unit mass denoted by H, can be related to other variables by H equals to E plus PV, where P is the pressure and here small v is the volume. So enthalpy is equals to internal energy plus pressure into volume. So here we need to consider the nature of air or the nature of gas. So if you want to say a calorically perfect gas, for a calorically perfect gas, which is an excellent model of air at moderate temperatures, here what is happening? Both E and H, which is specific internal energy and specific enthalpy, are directly proportional to temperature. It is a very simple way of calculating the thermodynamic behavior of gases. So if you say that air is or any gas is calorically perfect, simply we can write E equals to CVT and H equals to CPT. That's all over. So their internal energy is directly proportional to temperature with a constant multiplied by Cv, and here enthalpy is directly proportional to temperature with a constant multiplied by Cp. So here, as long as we are saying gas is calorically perfect, Cv and Cp remains as proportionality constants. That means Cv and Cp are treated as constants. Okay, remember, when Cv and Cp are found to be constant only, you can use this relation E equals to Cvt and H equals to Cpt. Then when they remain constant, as long as air is calorically perfect or gas is calorically perfect. Once the calorically perfect nature is lost, Cv and Cp are no more constants. Once they are not constants, you cannot use the relation E equals to Cvt and H equals to Cpt, because E is proportional to T, but here proportionality constant Cv is not a constant, it is variable. Similarly, Cp is not a constant, it is a variable. So the equation is invalid. Okay. So here I'm thinking that you know the basics of thermodynamics. I'm not going very deep into Cv, Cp, definition of H, definition of E, PV, and definition of universal gas constant, definition of the specific gas constant. I'm assuming that you already studied the thermodynamics. So that's why I directly started the topic. And here, Cp and Cv are specific heats at constant volume and constant pressure respectively, and you can correlate them like this: H minus E equals to PV, which is Cp minus Cv into T, temperature. And if you compare with the equation of state, P equals to rho RT, equation of state is P equals to rho RT, which is the equation for perfect gas. We can write it as Cp minus Cv equals to capital R. So this is a famous relation which you might have already studied in your thermodynamics. So I'm not going to discuss this very depth. Okay, directly I'm giving the equations here. And here the gamma, which is very, very important. The gamma is the ratio of specific heats, which is gamma equals to Cp by Cv. It is the ratio of specific heats. As long as the gas is calorically perfect, Cp and Cv are considered to be constant, and their ratio is also constant, which is a particular number 1.4 for air. So here the equation Cv can be written as Cv equals to R by gamma minus 1 and Cp equals to gamma R by gamma minus 1. So you can correlate specific heat at constant volume with the gas constant as Cv equals to R by gamma minus 1, specific heat at constant pressure with the gas constant gamma R by gamma minus 1. Okay. So Cp and Cv are constant for air up to the gas considered to be calorically perfect. So when gas is calorically perfect, the gamma value for air can be taken as 1.4. Okay. And other values, 1 by gamma minus 1 is 2.5, and you can take gamma by gamma minus 1 as 3.5. So these values are we are going to use. And already, which you might have studied in thermodynamic process. So here there are three kinds of process are existing in thermodynamics: adiabatic process, reversible process, and isentropic process. So what is adiabatic process? Where there is no heat is transferred in a process, where there is no exchange of heat, neither heat is added nor removed from a system. So the transfer of heat in either way, del Q equals to 0. Okay, if you consider, this rules out heating of a control volume via conduction through its boundary layer or by combustion inside the control volume. So here Cv is the control volume. If you take a predefined control volume with some boundaries, so that control volume, there is no heat transfer either in the way of conduction, convection, or any form, radiation or any form. Del Q is ultimately 0. And reversible process, here there is no dissipation. Dissipation means the energy is not dissipated into the flow, not spreading into the flow. So the dissipation is not happening. So implying that work must be only via volumetric compression. So where dW equals to minus PdV. So energy is not wasted. For example, like a friction. If friction is involved, the heat is dissipated, heat energy is dissipated. So here there are no losses. So whatever the work is done, it is done to the volumetric compression. So dW equals to minus PdV. So this rules out work done by friction forces. So if you say reversible process, the heat energy is negligibly lost, not considerably, negligibly lost. Any process, definitely there is a loss of heat energy. You cannot avoid loss of heat energy, but if it is negligible, you can consider it as a reversible process. And isentropic process. So this isentropic process is when the process happens in both the ways, adiabatic as well as reversible. Such a process, you can say it as a isentropic process. Neither heat is involved nor dissipation is involved. Okay, so no loss of energy, no transfer of energy in the form of heat. So such a process you can consider as isentropic process. Simply you can say dE equals to minus PdV. Okay, and here coming back to our aerodynamic concepts. So till now we have discussed because the compressibility plays a major role in thermodynamics. So effect of compressibility always leads to make us consider thermodynamic properties. Now where this thermodynamic properties to be considered? Aerodynamic flows are effectively inviscid. Okay, viscous is also a kind of interaction of energy, wastage of energy, dissipation of energy. So aerodynamic flows are effectively inviscid outside the boundary layers, because boundary layer, lot of viscous nature of flow is involved, where heat, the energy is dissipated. A lot it is dissipated inside the boundary layer. So this implies that they have negligible heat conduction and friction forces. Hence, the flows outside the boundary layer can be considered as isentropic, provided if much losses are not involved. For example, if you are talking in supersonic flows, a shock is formed. So before the shock and after the shock, that means if you consider the process across the shock, the flow process across the shock, it is not a isentropic process. But till the shock and after the shock, you can consider it as isentropic process. But across the shock, you cannot consider the flow as isentropic, because lot of heat energy is, a lot of pressure energy is getting wasted in the form of shock. So coming to the thermodynamic relation, so in an isentropic process, we got dE equals to minus PdV. So just we will change this relation such that we'll get a meaningful relations which we can use in our future calculations. So this relation can be integrated after a few substitutions. So I'm not talking step by step, just I'm giving the important points here. So you can write here dV equals to d into 1 by rho. So where mu is here, d nu equals to d into 1 by rho. So which can be equated as d rho by minus d rho by rho square. And if you consider the perfect gas equation, you can write here dE equals to Cv dt, which is 1 by gamma minus 1 into R dt. Okay. So here, now if we consider the isentropic, the thermodynamic first law, so you can consider P into d rho by rho square equals to 1 by gamma minus 1 into R dt. In turn, you can change this relation as d rho by rho equals to 1 by gamma minus 1 into rho r by P into dt. Here you can see P by rho r into dt. So which is the perfect gas equation, P equals to rho r t. So rho r by P into dt. So we are bringing the perfect gas equation into here. And in turn, you can write it as d rho by rho equals to 1 by gamma minus 1 into dt by t. So the final form can be integrated from state 1. State 1 means before the process, state 2 means after the process, along the path line of the fluid molecule. So path line means the path followed by a particular fluid molecule. So during its journey, if you can integrate this equation, whatever we formulated now, from its source point to destination point, state 1 to state 2 along the path line. So you can write this equation as ln rho, natural logarithm rho, equals to 1 by gamma minus 1 into ln t plus constant. And here, if you remove the natural logarithm, rho equals to constant into t power 1 by gamma minus 1, and in turn you can correlate it as, for two instances, rho 2 by rho 1 equals to t2 by t1 to the power of 1 by gamma minus 1. And this relation further you can change it as, using the perfect gas equation, rho 2 by rho 1 equals to p2 by p1 into t1 by t2. Okay, so we are using the perfect gas equation, P equals to rho RT. So using that relation, you can change in this way, rho 2 by rho 1 equals to P2 by P1 into T1 by T2. And finally, we will get P2 by P1 equals to T2 by T1 to the power of gamma by gamma minus 1. So you are relating rho with the T and you are relating P with the T. So finally, you can relate this P, rho, T each other. So in an isentropic process, finally, you can correlate this pressure, density, and temperature like this for two instances. P2 by P1 equals to rho 2 by rho 1 to the power gamma equals to T2 by T1 to the power of gamma by gamma minus 1. This is the perfect isentropic relation which we are going to use in our future computations. Okay, so here we are considering, what are the considerations here? The process is isentropic and the gas is considered to be calorically perfect, where gamma is considered to be constant. Gamma is not variable. Okay. So with these two assumptions, we have derived this relation. Now here, we will see the importance of this relation in deriving speed of sound. So speed of sound is an important consideration to tell direct effect of compressibility. So how you can tell direct effect of compressibility is through the Mach number. So Mach number, which is a non-dimensional number. So what is Mach number actually? So Mach number, you can simply say it is a non-dimensional number, which is the ratio of inertia force to elastic force. So if you are talking about Mach number, so indirectly you are talking about the elastic force, the compressibility effect. So in order to talk about the compressibility effect, you need to know the Mach number. Okay, then in what way the Mach number is related? So Mach number is related to speed of sound wave. So sound wave is considered to be the lightest pressure wave which creates a minimum disturbances while it is traveling. Okay, we will see the derivation of this equation for the speed of sound, and in turn we will consider what is the effect of Mach number. So here, an important parameter in the study of compressible flow is the speed of sound, which is speed at which infinitesimally, that means negligibly or with minimum changes, small pressure wave travels through a medium. What is the medium here? The gas is the medium, air is the medium. Okay, so with a lightest disturbances, the pressure wave travels. The pressure wave may be caused by a small disturbance. So any disturbance, if you can make, that disturbance will travel with a minimum changes of properties of that corresponding media, so in which it is traveling. So when it is traveling, it creates slightest rise in local pressure. So now to obtain the relation of speed of sound, here we will consider a piston which is kept in a chamber. So you can see the figure here. A piston is there. A piston is present on the left side. For example, if you just move the piston, it moves inside the chamber tightly. There is no movement of air from behind the piston to the front of the piston. Okay, so piston is tightly packed on the sidewards, both the side walls. Okay, now let us say if you just push a piston, so the piston is surrounded by fully gas molecules here. Okay, so whenever you are displacing the piston, so the piston creates a slight disturbances in the gas molecules, which we are calling it as a pressure wave. The slight disturbances will travel from one location to another location in the form of vibrations. While these vibrations are transmitted there are slight variations in the properties of gas molecules. Okay, before the pressure wave comes, let us say the properties of that stationary air molecules are enthalpy is H, pressure is P, density is rho, and let us say C is the velocity with which the pressure wave comes into the stationary gas molecules. So you have displaced the piston, and this piston has generated a slightest pressure wave, and when this pressure wave, before this pressure wave arrives to the stationary fluid, the properties are H, P, rho and C. And now once the pressure wave has moved through this stationary fluid, now what are the properties? We are considering this pressure wave is the slightest disturbance creating wave. So slightest, very small changes. So that's why since we are saying very small changes, that means whenever this pressure wave is passed, so it creates increment in pressure. Okay, increment in pressure, that too we are saying it is the slightest disturbance. So let us say when this pressure wave has passed, the pressure of the stationary fluid raised from P to dP. That means previous pressure is P, now the present pressure after this wave has passed is P plus dP. So what is the raise in pressure? dP, which is very, very small quantity. Okay, so similarly the enthalpy is also raised by dH. That means previously it is H, now the enthalpy is H plus dH. Similarly density rho plus d rho, and the velocity of the wave is C. Okay, so in this way, now if you consider this piston movement, that means when the piston is moving, it creating a slightest disturbance. So this disturbance we can see here. Now here we will apply the concept of control volume. So let us say that pressure wave, the surrounding of the pressure wave with a small control volume. Okay, so now when the piston has moved, so if you consider an observer traveling with the pressure wave or wave front, the fluid to the right will appear to be moving towards the wave front with a speed of C, because the sound wave is moving C. Whoever traveling with the sound wave, they feel that the gas in front of the pressure wave is coming towards them with a velocity C. And after the wave front, because of the pressure wave disturbance, the stationary gas or stationary fluid has moved after the shock wave with a velocity C minus dV. So previously, before the shock, it is C, and later it is C minus dV. Okay, so considering this concept, we'll apply the control volume concept. So here if you take continuity equation, that means whatever the mass entering has to mass flow rate per unit time should be equal on both sides, inlet and outlet. Okay, mass on the left side should be equals to mass flow rate on the left side should be equals to mass flow rate on the right side. So what is mass flow rate? So m dot equation we can write it as rho AV, density into cross sectional area into velocity. Okay, here rho is the density and A is the cross sectional area of the piston chamber, and instead of V we have the velocity C, or for the after the wave it is C minus dV. Okay, now if you consider the flow as steady flow only, you can use this m dot equation. Okay, m dot concept. So now we are bringing another consideration is steady flow. Okay, so mass flow rate on the right side should be equals to mass flow rate on the left side. So let us say mass flow rate on the right side is rho A into velocity C. Then what is the mass flow rate on the left side? Rho. Instead of rho, we have rho plus d rho. A is same, cross sectional area of the piston, and instead of V velocity, the velocity has changed by C minus dV. And if you solve it, you are going to get C d rho minus rho dV equals to 0. And if you apply one-dimensional energy equation, energy in is equals to energy out. Okay, so one-dimensional energy equation H1 plus V1 square by 2 equals to H2 plus V2 square by 2. This you might have studied in your thermodynamics previously. So assuming that you know this equation, so if you apply this same equation on the left side and right side of the pressure wave, you are going to get H plus instead of velocity on the left side, we are going to write c square by 2. And here on the right side, h is changed as h plus dh. And instead of velocity v, we have here c minus dv. So h plus dh plus c minus dv whole square by 2. And again, if you solve this equation, you are going to get dh minus c dv equals to 0. Okay, dh minus c dv equals to 0. And again, you consider the same equation, rho ac equals to rho plus d rho into a into c minus dv. You solve this equation, and here you are going to get c d rho minus rho dv equals to 0. Now apply the thermodynamics concept, dh equals to the change in enthalpy, dh equals to tds plus vdp. So dh change in enthalpy equals to tds plus vdp, and here dh equals to tds plus 1 by rho into, so here nu we are writing it as 1 by rho. So here, sorry, rho is missing. So 1 by rho into dp. Now you can modify this considering isentropic. So if you say that isentropic process, so entropy is not changing. Entropy is remaining same. S1 equals to S2. So ds equals to S2 minus S1. So since S1 equals to S2, ds will be 0. Then you can write this equation as dh equals to dp by d rho, or dp by rho. Then from first law of thermodynamics, in turn, you can change it as dh equals to c dv. Now, from the continuity equation, again you can change dv equals to c d rho by rho. So finally you can change like this, dp by rho equals to c into c d rho by rho, and here c square equals to k into dp by d rho, where k is the ratio of the specific heats. Sometime in some textbook rho is used, gamma is used, and in some textbook k is used. Okay, so some textbooks we are following the notation gamma. Here for this presentation I refer two textbooks. In one location it is given gamma, in one location it is given k. So both the meaning is same, Cp, which is the ratio of specific heats, k equals to Cp by Cv. So here we are getting c square equals to k into dou p by dou rho. Okay, so now in turn you can change like this, c square equals to k into dou p by dou rho. So if you apply the ideal gas equation or perfect gas equation, so p equals to rho RT. So from that, so if you bring the RT, p by rho equals to RT here, so you can write it as c square equals to, so the dou p by dou rho is RT here, so you can substitute RT here. So it will become c equals to root of kRT, where c is the velocity of the pressure wave, or velocity of what is the pressure wave here, that is the sound wave. Okay, so simply you can consider the velocity of sound wave which is flowing through the gas molecules. Consider here the considered medium is gaseous medium or fluid medium. Okay, so in metals it is different. In metals also sound can pass. In solid bodies also the sound can pass, but the equation used there is not this one. Here we are considering gamma, c equals to root of gamma RT or kRT. In some textbooks c is used, in some textbooks small a is used, where c or small a is the velocity of the sound wave. So a equals to root of gamma RT or c equals to root of kRT. Here root of kRT is the velocity of the sound wave, or root of gamma RT is the velocity of the sound wave, where k or gamma is the ratio of specific heat Cp by Cv, R is the specific gas constant. Remember, it is specific gas constant, not universal gas constant, and T is the temperature of the fluid medium in which this pressure wave is traveling. Okay, very important result. A equals to root of gamma RT or C equals to root of kRT. Now, what is its importance? Okay, since R is the specific gas constant, it varies from gas to gas, specific gas constant. For one gas it is one volume, other gas it is other volume. So for example, if you take R value for atmospheric air, it is 287 joule per kg Kelvin. Okay, so R is 287 for air. So based on that, the C value varies. Okay, so for atmospheric air, it is 284 meter per second if you consider at 200 Kelvin temperature. But for helium gas, it is 832 meter per second. At 200 Kelvin temperature, if you consider what is the velocity of the pressure wave with which it moves. In atmospheric air, at 200 Kelvin, the pressure wave can move only with 284 meter per second velocity. Whereas in helium gas, it can move with 832 meter per second. At 300 Kelvin, you see the difference, 347 meter per second, 1019 meters per second. And at 1000 Kelvin, 634 meter per second and 1861 meters per second. Okay, so in this way, the speed of sound wave varies based on the nature of the gas. Okay, because here R is the specific gas constant, its value varies from one gas to another gas, and as well as based on temperature also. Then how this is used? So here the speed of sound wave is a strict function of R and T. If you take the calorically perfect gas where gamma is constant, so R is C is, that is velocity of the pressure wave, is a strict function of the gas nature as well as at what temperature it is present. And if you take, let us take an aeroplane traveling with some velocity 320 meters per second in atmosphere where the temperature is 200 Kelvin. Now if you calculate its Mach number, so what is the Mach number? Mach number is defined as ratio of an object velocity in a given media divided by the sound wave velocity in the same media. Okay, so whatever the media you are considering on the numerator side, the same media you have to consider on the denominator side. Okay, suppose if you consider an aircraft is moving in atmospheric air, so you have to consider the velocity of pressure wave in that atmospheric air at the same condition, at the same temperature. Okay, so now if you consider an aircraft moving with velocity 320 meters per second at an altitude where temperature is 200 Kelvin, you will get a Mach number of 1.13. Here you see MA, the Mach number. Okay, and here the same aircraft, if it is moving with 320 meters per second where the temperature is 300 Kelvin, the Mach number you will get only 0.92. You see the difference. So at higher altitude, because of lower pressure, so you are getting more Mach number for the same velocity. But at lower altitudes, because of high temperature, what happens? Even though the aircraft traveling with the same velocity 320 meters per second, but still your aircraft is not supersonic. That means you will not generate any shock waves. We will see the concept of shock waves in upcoming presentations. Okay, so here MA is less than 1 for 300 Kelvin, but MA is greater than 1 for 200 Kelvin temperature. That means, so the concept you try to understand. So it's the subsonic or sonic or supersonic nature depends strictly on the temperature, even though you are traveling in the same media. Okay, so if MA is less than 1, if Mach number is less than 1, ambient Mach number is less than 1, you will call it as subsonic. If it is MA equals to 1, you will call it as sonic. And if MA is greater than 1, we will call supersonic. And if MA is far greater than 1, generally beyond 4 or beyond 5, you will call hypersonic. And there is a separate region called transonic, where if the Mach number is in the range of 0.8 to 1.2, so that particular range of sound regime is called as transonic regime. So 0.8 to 1.2. Okay, so which is a part of flow from subsonic and a part of flow from supersonic will come in the region of transonic Mach number. Now, what is the effect of Mach number? Let us say an aerofoil is present at 0.8 Mach number. Okay, less than 0.8 Mach number. The flow goes smoothly. The flow separates in front of the aerofoil, which is kept at normal 0 degree. It moves very smoothly. Okay, you can see the velocity is like this. But If the same aerofoil is present in transonic flow, that means where the flow Mach number is 0.8, okay, it is lying in between 0.8 to 1.2. Let us say you are traveling in subsonic range only. Let us say you are traveling in subsonic range where the range is 0.9. Let us say 0.9. So 0.9 is less than 1. You can call it as a subsonic flow. So here you are in 0.9 range of Mach number, but because of flow expanding on the surface of the aerofoil. So the surface of the aerofoil, you have studied in FAA, Fundamentals of Aeronautics and Astronautics. In order to get lift, you should have more velocity on the top side and less velocity on the bottom side. So aerofoil does the same thing. So that's why more velocity you will get on the top side, because of which, even though you are at 0.9 Mach number here in the free stream side, but the Mach number expands greater than 1 here, and because once you reach greater than 1, automatically shock waves are formed. Shock waves are formed only in supersonic flow, that we will discuss in upcoming classes. This is the nature of flow. So still you are flying at 0.9 Mach number, which is subsonic Mach number, but your wing is generating shock waves, which is the characteristic of supersonic flow. So even though you are traveling at subsonic Mach number, but your wing is exposed to supersonic Mach number. And here automatically the flow is in the range of sonic. So where m infinitive is in between 1 to 1.2. So here you will get a flow is automatically just above the sonic Mach number. So we'll get a shock in front of the aerofoil, and in front of the shock you will have multiple regions: subsonic flow, supersonic flow, mixed range, and sonic flow. So mixed region of flows, and in the trailing edge also two shock waves are formed. Okay, so like this. And suppose if you have a kind of triangle shaped, which is wedge body, if you have, which is kept in a supersonic flow, since wedge is a slim body, a slim kind of body, it generates two oblique shock waves like this, and through this oblique shock waves the flow velocity is changed like this. Here, since here there is one concept, I will explain that concept in upcoming classes. So in order to have change in the direction of fluid molecules, this happens by creating a shock wave. So through the shock wave only, the fluid molecules are changing their direction and becoming parallel to the surface of the body. And the same wedge, if it is kept in hypersonic flow, so the shock angles are very, very low, and with respect to the body, they are very close to the body, and they will even interact with the shock waves, boundary layers formed on the body. So this is called shock wave boundary layer interaction, which is a very common phenomena in hypersonic flows. Okay, so this is the nature of supersonic flow, and this is the nature of hypersonic flow. And here you can see the multiple regions of flows. Okay, the same aerofoil kept in subsonic flow, transonic flow, and supersonic flow, how the flow pattern is changing. So this is the effect of Mach number. Now, before going into the very deep discussion, we have said that calorically perfect gas, thermally. What is this actually? So in upcoming classes, it is very, very important. So that's why I'm talking about. So in thermodynamics, you might have already learned that a perfect gas is one in which intermolecular forces are neglected. So intermolecular forces are not strong. So because of that, so you can the gas behaves perfectly. You can call it as a perfect gas. So it accepts all the laws. So PV equals to, it has a Boyle's law, Charles law, and from that you will get PV equals to RT, and you can write it as P equals to rho RT, which is, we are calling it as a equation of state or perfect gas. In many compressible flow applications, the pressure and temperatures are moderate enough that gas can be considered as calorically perfect. So I already told you in the previous slides what is calorically perfect. So as long as the ratio of Cp and Cv, that means if Cp and Cv are considered to be constant, then you can say that gas as a calorically perfect gas. Here, if you take example as air, the Cp and Cv, specific heat at constant pressure and specific heat at constant volume, remains constant for air up to 1000 Kelvin temperature. Up to 1000 Kelvin temperature, Cp and Cv remain constant, and later that they start varying. So up to 1000 Kelvin temperature, air can be considered as calorically perfect gas. Okay, So till that region, Cp and Cv values will not change. They are constant for air. Okay. Then once you cross 1000 Kelvin temperature, what happens? For air at higher temperatures, so vibrational motion of oxygen and nitrogen molecules in air becomes important. So energy of a gas is present generally in four forms: vibrational energy, translation energy, rotational energy, and electronic energy. So in these four types of energies, so once you cross 1000 Kelvin, so the vibration energy share is more in the total energy. Okay, it becomes so important, and this is the cause for random motion of the random vibration of the molecules, and energy exchanges continuously happens within the gas molecules. They start vibrating highly randomly. So what happens? Because of that, the gas loses its calorically perfect gas nature. And up to what temperature it is present? Okay. So here, finally, when the temperature exceeds 2500 Kelvin, the oxygen molecules will start dissociating into oxygen atom. Because of random vibrations, you are start increasing the temperature of atmospheric air from 1000 to 2500 Kelvin. So till 2500 Kelvin, the vibration energy becomes very, very important. And after 2500 Kelvin, oxygen receives a lot of energy and they will start dissociating. Oxygen molecule is O2 molecule. Two oxygen atoms are bonded together. But after 2500 Kelvin, their bond is broken and they dissociate into single oxygen atoms. And here air becomes chemically reacting. So O's are present. The O atom alone is not stable. So what happens? They try to form bond with another freely available atom, and they oxygen try to become a stable molecule. So what happens? It will try to chemically react. Okay. So chemical reacting nature induces into the gas. And if you start continuously heating thereafter and above 4000 Kelvin, N2 molecule also begun to dissociate. N2 is a very strong triple bond we have studied in chemistry during 11th or 12th class. So N2 bond is a triple bond, O2 bond is a double bond. So triple bond is very stronger than double bond. That's why it requires very high temperatures of 4000 Kelvin. So up to 4000 Kelvin, N2 molecule will be there as molecule, and once you cross 4000 Kelvin, N2 also will start dissociate into N atoms, and high chemical nature is induced into the atmospheric air. Here after what happens? E depends both on T, nu and H, nu, and H depends upon T and P. Okay, so internal energy depends upon both temperature and specific volume, and H depends upon temperature and pressure. So then what happens? What kind of nature is induced? From 2500 to up to 1000 Kelvin, we know that air is considered to be calorically perfect gas. Okay, so where you can say simply E equals to CVT, H equals to CPT. And from 2500 Kelvin to 4000 Kelvin, these equations are not valid. So here the air is only thermally perfect. So 2500 Kelvin range to 4000 Kelvin, air is considered to be only thermally perfect, and above 4000 Kelvin, the air is considered to be neither calorically nor thermally perfect. It is rather than it is a chemically reacting mixture. Okay, 4000 Kelvin, you take atmospheric air and you heat it up to 4000 Kelvin. So N is present, O is present. You take an atmospheric air where oxygen is separate and nitrogen is separate. They are present as a separate species. But if you take atmospheric air and heat it to 4000 Kelvin, you'll get nitrogen dioxide or nitrogen monoxide. So which is poisonous gas, because N is separated and O is separated. They will try to form a they will try to make a bond NO2. Okay, nitrogen dioxide. Okay, you have heated it, they dissociated, and again they will try to. So in this way, the chemical reaction nature induces into the gas. You brought the air, but it has become another gas, another new species. Okay, so that's why the chemical nature, once it start beginning, the gas is not a perfect gas. So we will have the separate concept for that gas. Okay, those gases are modeled by different equations. We are not going to use this kind of P equals to rho RT or H equals to CPT equals to CVT. They are modeled by separate equations. Okay, so this is up to as long as we are talking about compressible flows, we will consider air as a calorically perfect gas where temperature is below 1000 Kelvin temperature. Okay, so This is for today's introductory topic, fundamental aspects of compressible flows. In the next presentation, I will go very deep into the concepts of flow through the nozzles and how the nozzles will behave here, etc. Thank you for your patient listening, and these are my references. Thank you all.